All right, we are live on YouTube and good to go.
So I could do it again, or are we good?
Yes.
Okay. I'd now like to call to order the 20th regular planning commission meeting at 7:02 PM. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Tan,
Present.
Commissioner Dawson,
Present.
Commissioner Aberly,
Present.
Commissioner Wagner,
Present.
and Commissioner Reiswig.
Present.
Commissioner Peters has asked to be excused today. We do have a quorum.
Perfect. Clerk, did anyone submit a public comment in advance?
No, they did not.
All right. If anyone in actual or virtual attendance would like to speak, please raise your hand now. Star number 9 or star 9 is used to raise your hand if you are connected by phone. Do we have anyone remotely watching or sitting in on the meeting?
We do not.
All right. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Oops. Oh, yeah, we approved the agenda. For August 2024. Are there any items anyone would like removed from the consent agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it and the motion is passed. Do we need to approve the minutes from July? Oh. Perfect. All right. Do we have any reports or presentations?
Yeah, the first thing on our regular agenda is we have Jennifer Kraus here with Liberty House Plans. She's been working with us on developing pre-qualified or pre-approved house plans that will be available for the public to purchase, to construct. So far, we had put out a survey that Jennifer is going to go over with us here in a little bit to go over the coverage of that. And then we have, based on feedback from the survey, we have 3 accessory dwelling unit plans that we've kind of selected that we think are most appropriate to continue to move forward through the program. I did meet with Commissioner Dawson a couple weeks ago because he is a local builder and on the planning commission and has some firsthand experience with smaller units. So I think we had 5 or 6 plans that Ben and I looked over that were all available on Liberty House Plans website. But we went through that process and kind of picked the best 3 to go forward. And so we'll take a look at each one of those and are interested in your feedback. And we're not looking for a motion tonight necessarily, but just basically kind of a consensus that, yeah, let's take these plans and then move on to the next stage. And Jennifer will go over that as well with us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Kraus to you. with Liberty House plans. And is Jennifer available to speak now, or? Yep.
I am. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Great. You know, I was born before all this technology, and even though we've had it for a long time, it still blows my mind that I can be sitting in New York State and talking with you and seeing you in Washington. So thank you for inviting me to join you for this meeting. I'm going to share with you a little bit of a screen share here. Is it okay if I screen share? It's going to take, oh, there you go. Continue. And there we
And what time is it back in New York State?
go. It's 10.
Oh, not too bad.
No,
Not bad.
not terrible. So let's see if this shows properly. Yes, good. Okay, you should be seeing now a page of the survey where the top question is, we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Do you live in the city of College Place, Washington? Is that what you're seeing on your screen?
It is. It's a little small. If you could make it a little bit bigger, but also commissioners, I would remind you that that PDF document is available on your tablet. So if you wanted to open that, you could scroll along with her as well. So
the city has done something that other cities haven't necessarily done in their pre-reviewed plan programs. And I think it was a good move. Instead of the planning and economic development department making their best guess about what plans would work for the municipality, College Place actually surveyed local folks, and most of the people who responded to the survey live in College Place. So that was nearly 84%. So I think it's fair to say that for the most part, the results that we got represent the public opinion. I think we had a total of 82 responses, out of which 62 finished the survey. So the question that we asked for, I think it was 10 or 11 different designs, was how well that style fits in with College Place. And the design you see here, which is called the Beechwood Cove, was far and away the most popular. It I think over 80% of respondents either felt that it deserved a 4 or a 5. So that would say, amount to well or very well. And so that's one of the 3 designs that the staff chose to include for potential inclusion in the program. The other 2 designs, see if I switch tabs here. Has it switched for you? Do you see something called the Seabourn 2?
yeah.
Okay, great. So the other 2 designs are hit a little bit different part of the market. The Beechwood Cove is a 600 square foot ADU, so it's it's on the ample side. It's at the upper limit of size for ADUs according to the local ordinance. The Seabourn 2 is a smaller size ADU, so really about as modest as you can get and still live comfortably. It does actually still have a walk-in closet. If you can see, I wonder if I can enlarge that. So the floor plan will not all fit on the screen, but perhaps this is a better view of it. The style can be modified. And so one of the pieces of feedback that we got was that we might want to make it look a little bit more in style like the Seabourn cottage here, partly because it would fit in better with the local architectural styles, traditional architectural styles, but also because this is a simpler construction with the roof reaching out over the porch as it is. So that's a possibility that we might explore if the city is interested. Then the third design that we're looking seriously at is the Tangerine Carriage House. It's a 2-car garage with an apartment overhead. The apartment is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. And the size of that apartment is 528 square feet. We're looking at some potential modifications for this one as well to tweak it to be more appropriate for the lot sizes in College Place. But I think that between these 3 designs, you have a good initial set of designs that could suit different stakeholders who are looking to build an ADU. And it would be a question of which design to prioritize and run through the process first. John, was there anything else that you wanted me to cover?
No, I think that's a good start. And if there's questions that any of the commissioners have, or comments, we're willing to entertain them right now. So. Todd, would you want to, Commissioner Ricewick, do you want to, kind of control who speaks?
Go ahead.
Yeah, John, I guess kind of a question for you, or maybe something that the building department, how often, I know this is all kind of new where you can put the ADUs in existing lots, and you know, that my understanding that came from the state of Washington as far as of kind of a mandate, you know, this can be done with limited setbacks and things. And that's relatively new, but do you have kind of an idea of how much interest there might be out there based off of people who have responded to that, or do you think many people know about it yet?
I think there's quite a few people in the community that are aware that accessory dwelling units are an option for them. We have had the ability, or the residents have had the ability to place ADUs in their backyard for several years prior to the state stepping in and encouraging, basically essentially mandating that these happen across the state in communities. We had some restrictions that the Planning Commission helped develop early on that were a little more restrictive than what we have today. For instance, we did limit the size of the accessory dwelling units. We had some height restrictions on them, if you recall. We've rolled those restrictions back. But even under the early standards that we had adopted, we've had accessory dwelling units be permitted. I think we're in the neighborhood of around 6 which is not a lot, but for the size of the city, I think it's a fair amount. And we continually, I would say, probably every month I get a call from a resident at the very least about, you know, what their options are for accessory dwelling units. And so this would be another tool in our box to when I get those calls, I can say, hey, we've got this product available for you. Yeah, there's an expense, but I think from a homeowner standpoint, I think we'll see some activity on it. Maybe not a developer, because, you know, the economies of scale might not work for them. If they wanted to do 5 or 6 of them, it might be cheaper to go out on their own, but it might spark some ideas. So yeah, anecdotally, there is certainly interest in the city, and it will continue to grow. I mean, affordable housing will continue to be a subject of discussion and coverage and, you know, on local topics. So.
Do any other commissioners have any questions?
I do.
Oh, I think Commissioner Haberly may have had his hand up before me.
You go ahead, I'll follow.
Okay. I wanted to confirm my understanding that we're only allowed one ADU per city property. Is that correct?
No, under our current regulations, you are allowed up to two in addition to the
Okay.
primary residence.
I must be confusing that with another city. I was talking to somebody that lived in a different city about this. Okay, so how do these compare in size to because it's not uncommon in College Place to see an ADU. They're older, mostly for student housing, I believe. How does this compare in size and accommodation to the existing ones that people are used to seeing around here?
Well, I can't really speak to like a lot of the basement apartments that we have that qualify as accessory dwelling units, but the current ones that we've permitted recently all fall under the 600 square foot category because there's an incentive to keep them smaller. Your water and sewer connection charges are reduced significantly if you keep it under 600 square feet. And so that's, I think, for the most part, why we're focusing on these smaller units.
Right. Well, I guess to clarify my question, one of the things I noticed moving into the community several years ago was there are several very small homes and backyards, especially up and down Whitman, kind of in this general area of the older parts of College Place. And I'm just wondering the difference between these and these new ones and those. Are those considered accessory dwelling units, or do they have their own addresses?
Well, addressing doesn't really factor into whether it's an ADU or not.
Okay.
And the term accessory dwelling unit is a relatively new term. So,
Okay.
I mean, I still have my building official will still refer to a home that has a basement apartment into it as a duplex, and they're not duplexes either. So, but it is a 2-unit, which we typically think of as a duplex. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think a little bit of what you might be getting to is semantics between. Basically, we're trying to encourage smaller units, and as one of the tactics towards combating our affordable housing issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Haberly, you had a question?
Yeah, I've got just a handful, mostly for clarification. John, can you remind me what the minimum setbacks are for an ADU on a property?
So the state dictated pretty heavily on what we can regulate in terms of setbacks. So if it's an alley located and the alley is not plowed regularly in the winter, we have to allow a 5-foot setback off the alley, and then it's 5 feet off the side. And then generally speaking, although there are ways to shorten this distance, but the separation between the new ADU and the primary residence on the property is generally 10 feet because that's your fire separation. There are ways to reduce that through building code techniques. But the side yard and rear yard setback are 5 feet.
Okay, so 5 feet off the shared property line then? Is my understanding that correct? Okay.
Correct.
The max ADU size and height. I vaguely remember us having this discussion a couple months ago. Is that accurate? We talked about limiting that height in some capacity to the height of the existing structure of the primary unit. Is that at all ringing bells, or am I conflating that with something else?
We used to have that provision in our code. We basically limited them to 1.5 stories, and we also restricted like windows that looked into side yards had to either be like high transom height or opaque, like frosted glass. But we we no longer have the ability to the state's regulations unless we applied those same standards to all single-family homes. Then we can't apply that to just ADUs. So the building height is 35 feet essentially. And we don't have any restrictions on placements of windows and doors and things of that nature.
Okay, and can you remind, is there a max ADU size?
It all relates back to setbacks essentially.
Okay.
And
So,
main
so no, as
maintaining
long as.
factors like stormwater on site and things like that.
Okay. Sorry, I've got a handful of these. I've just been racking up. The cost of permitting. So I'm a homeowner and, but I'm not a contractor. So if I wanted to put an ADU in my backyard, it sounds like it's going to cost me, if I want to put one of these Liberty plans in my backyard, it's going to cost me $300 to purchase the plans. And those are going to be pre-approved by the city. Is that an accurate statement?
I think the amount is more than that.
Okay.
For the
I can
plans.
speak to the amount if you'd like.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer.
So what you're doing when you use one of these plans is you're essentially licensing it to build it a certain number of times. And, you know, in this case, it would be once. And the license fee is the same that somebody else would find on our website.
Okay.
What you're comparing it, or what we compare it to, is what would it cost for you to have an architect design something specifically for you and for your site. And custom architecture typically costs, with a good architect, between 10 and 20% of the cost of putting up the home. And in the case of a stock plan, you're only paying 1 to 2%. So you're basically saving 90% off of what you would pay, you know, under normal circumstances if you hired an architect. But you're welcome to go to the Liberty House Plans website and check out the prices for any of these particular plans. It amounts to about $1 to $2 per square foot.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And it sounds like the city is paying Liberty for the opportunity to pre-approve these plans so that they don't have to go through the approval process that they would otherwise have to go through the city if they were not pre-approved. Accurate statement, John?
Yes.
Okay. So if I wanted to put one of these in my backyard, it's less than 600 square feet. Let's assume that. What's it going to cost me in permits to get that permitted, set up, whatever, through the city and greenlit, stamps, ready to move in? Is that, I saw some, I was reading through some of the comments. I noticed at the end of that survey, there was an individual who was concerned that if I want to build more than 600 square feet, it's going to cost me $7,000 and there's kind of no mid-tier. So I'm just kind of curious, you know, how big a check would I have to write to the city if I wanted to put one of these in my backyard?
Well, I don't have the exact details on what the building permit would cost, and the sewer and
You have
water.
a rough idea?
But Christy, would you? I want to say in the
600 square feet.
3,000 range, I think, probably. I'm sorry for not being able to, I don't see those
No, I
numbers.
just,
So,
that's fine. I'm just trying to get a rough idea. You know, if I was interested in building one of these, or I want to have a conversation about the things we discussed, say, hey, look, you know, this is really affordable way to put a 600 square foot ADU in your backyard. So I was just trying to get a rough idea what this is going to cost. So $700 for plans, $3,000 to the city plus building costs. That's what it sounds like to me, roughly.
that sounds about right.
All right. And I'm just kind of curious, since we're on the topic of the survey still, did you have any thoughts related to that comment that individual made about having a mid-tier option for permits over 600 square feet, but like less than 1,000 or less than 1,200?
I recall seeing that, that's not the first time that I've heard that. So the rate structure that we currently have for our water and sewer connection fees are set by the city council. And I believe we are going to be, next year, we're going to be doing a rate structure for our connection fees, which is a really in-depth process. And we take into factors everything from what it cost us to run those facilities, our water and, water treatment facilities, our sewer treatment facilities, and the cost of putting pipe in the ground, all those sort of things factor into how we establish that standard cost of $3,500 for a water connection and a sewer connection each. So $7,000 for each one of those total for those utilities. The reduced charge that we came up with was not an in-depth process that we went through at all. It was merely just look, this is obviously the system we have in place is not equitable if you're going to put in a small unit at all, and it was a huge deterrent for any sort of ADUs being put in legally. We've seen a lot of basement conversions and things like that illegally. So it was kind of a stopgap measure. And I think that going in this next rate structure evaluation, I'm sure that we will see some options for on how to calculate this differently that's more equitable based on the size of the units that are being built.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you for entertaining my questions.
Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments at this time?
I do. Is there any restriction being placed as to how this ADU is being used? Can it be somebody want to make a rental unit or Airbnb, or does it need to be used by resident themselves?
That's an excellent question. There are no restrictions on the use other than obviously it needs to be used as some sort of residential purpose. So renting them out for long-term rentals is an option. Short-term rentals are an option. Personal use as a accessory, mother-in-law unit, family members. We do have, we are aware of approximately 50 accessory or vacation rentals in College Place that we're currently in the process of trying to get them all licensed and processed, permitted. So that's certainly an option as a use.
Okay. And I think this has been asked before, where it get its own separate address.
Yes, they are addressed separately. They usually don't they don't get their own house number. Usually it would be like well, in some cases they might get their own, if it's a detached structure, it might get its own unit number, but if it's a basement or a garage conversion or something like that, usually it's like a and B or a 1 and 2, depending on how it's configured.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I just have a comment for the good of the order, I think. I've listened to some of the questions. I think one of the advantages of this particular system and utilizing this vendor is not so much a cost savings as a time savings, in that a person who wants to do this can walk in, pick the plan, it's already approved. It doesn't have to go through that review process and the back and forth with a design individual, and someone can get moving forward a lot quicker. It removes some of the friction and the resistance that people have to do something, because it makes it easier. I think is the big advantage I see with it. All right, do we have anything more, John?
Commissioner Aberle still has his
Oh,
hand up.
Commissioner Aberle,
Yeah.
I didn't see your hand up. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I just as Commissioner Kane was asking a question, I thought of another one. What about parking? I know there are some rules related to the amount of parking available at any given space, and maybe that's just business maybe it's less residential. I don't know. Maybe you can speak to that, John. If I were to add 2 ADUs to my backyard, all I have right now is street parking in front of available in front of my house, street parking. How is the city going to deal with additional parking requirements? Are there parking requirements for residential spaces?
Good question. And that the parking item was one of the things that the state left to the local jurisdictions. Unless there was they were within a certain proximity of public transit, but the public transit had to meet a certain definition of, like Valley Transit doesn't meet their definition of, well, it is public transit. It doesn't meet their definition of what I think mass transit was or is in the state. So we did not opt to allow for the option to not provide parking. So our code requires 1 parking space per accessory dwelling unit, in addition to the on-street parking spaces that are required for the primary, if there were any provided originally. So that is one way that we will work backwards, basically. Yeah, you can have 2 accessory dwelling units on your property, but you've got to figure out how the setbacks are going to factor into that, separation from your existing unit to the new units, and providing those parking spaces and whatnot. So, the code may say you can have 2 more ADUs, but you may not be able to fit it all on that, the postage stamp lot that you have. Essentially.
Okay. That's helpful. And I don't know, I imagine there's a lot of individuals, I'll include myself in this just because I guess I can. There's a lot of individuals who maybe go into this type of plan naively, saying, you know what, I'm just going to put an ADU in my backyard and I'm going to get $1,200 a month and I get a pocket, whatever. There's people that maybe want to benefit from this in some way that may not fully understand all the ramifications and requirements associated with this. They purchase some Liberty plans, get halfway into it, and then realize, oh shoot, I don't have enough parking. Is there a process by which individuals are going to go through where they're going to get educated about whether or not this is acceptable on their lot, and they meet all the requirements of putting it on their lot before they spend any money? And I just don't want individuals losing out because they're unaware that their property may or may not fit this particular ADU and meet the requirements.
Yes, yeah, certainly. If people reach out to us, we always educate them about what the requirements are. We'll let them know that, there are setbacks. Yes, we have these plans that have been pre-reviewed, but we got to make sure it's going to fit on your lot. They'll have to provide us with a site plan showing where it's going to be. They'll have to show how they're going to comply with the parking requirements. And, Jennifer, at the end of this, there will be a web page dedicated to the pre-approved plans that College Place has, correct? And I would assume on that web page, we could probably direct them to, before you buy these, let's make sure that, you can fit it on your lot and you need to contact the city of College Place and work through that process.
That's correct. There will be room at the top of the page to put whatever text makes sense, including information that will help people contact the city, know who to contact in order to determine what the process is and whether a design could fit on it.
Yeah, I feel like something akin to a requirements checklist, just a basic requirements checklist, would probably avoid a little bit of frustration right at the top of that page.
Yeah,
that's a great idea. And we're actually in the process of hiring a senior planner, and one of those items, it's a position that's being funded through the Department of Commerce the first year of that position, and it's a streamlining the permitting process grant. And one of those things, their first task is going to be revising all of our applications and creating checklists and things like that, so that there's more information out there to assist through the process. So,
I think, having that education lie with the city is consistent with what other cities have done, and it's, I think the best is better than trying to have all of the detail at the top of the College Place collection page, because it means that you can maintain one point, one place where information lives, and you don't have to worry about updating details when they change, in two places. So
that's a great point.
I think you're right to do that work and have it live at the city, and the College Place collection page will make sure that people are reminded that they need to examine those questions and, give the contact info of who they should reach out to in order to do that.
Go ahead, Commissioner Dawson, with your question.
Hey, Jennifer, I had a question for you. With these Liberty House plans, do you guys have a minimum size, or what would be the smallest of these tiny homes that you guys build? And then, John, is there such thing as a minimum size for College Place?
Happened to be working with this model actually earlier before our meeting. I don't know if you can see it because of the autofocus. Maybe if I put it in front of my face. This is a design by Historic Shed, who designed one of the cottages that is a front runner for you. It's called the Starlit. Yes, the Starlit Studio. And so it's a little studio cottage. It's only 224 square feet. And I believe it's the smallest design that we represent that could be lived in as a primary dwelling for someone. And it might sound minuscule. We're not used to thinking of 224 square foot homes, but I, as a student, lived in a home that was 194 square feet. So, and I did it for 4 years, and it worked really well for me because the rent was more affordable, and it was a great solution for those student years. So I say that's the smallest that you can probably go with our designs.
Yeah, and I think the RC, I think, has some minimum standard, and I couldn't quote what it is, but it's
right about
240 or
220, 240, 250, somewhere in there, if I remember correctly. Last time I talked
You
to
got a separation from the toilet to the kitchen sink or something like that. I don't know.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one more. I apologize for taking up so much time. Does anyone have a rough idea, John or otherwise, have a rough idea of what in 2024 one of these would cost to build? Let's say one of the 600 square foot models. I know it varies widely, but give me an idea. Are we talking in current market rates? Are we talking $50,000 to build one of these, or are we talking 80?
I think it's going to range greatly on how much you want to roll your sleeves up, how much you want to do the general contracting on your own, hiring the different trades, or being willing to do the work yourself. So I don't have a number for you there.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have anything else to go along with this, John?
That's all we have for this topic. Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer, for joining us. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. All right, next thing on the agenda is election of officers for 2024. What positions do we have that we need to fill? Chair and vice chair, are those the only two?
That is correct.
Okay. Would anybody be interested in the chair position? We'll start with that. If somebody's willing to be nominated without being forcefully nominated. No, I'm currently the vice chair. We just don't currently have a chair. And I'm happy to continue in the vice chair position. My work schedule, especially during the summer, can get kind of hectic. So I hate to commit to the chair position and be gone for extended periods of time.
We have cheat sheets for you on how to run the meetings and to make you look good.
It really isn't that difficult if you're paying attention. Earlier, I was distracted reading, so John had to remind me to do my job.
Well, I will nominate myself based on the fact that I am available. Tuesday nights are never a conflict, except for music stuff that I get involved in, but try not to be that busy anymore. So I will nominate myself based on the ability to be available and be happy to serve in that capacity if anybody is willing to have me.
So how the cheat sheet does not cover that? What's the
Does that
formal
come with the
process?
position?
What's the formal process for?
So Mr. Brown has volunteered himself for the chairman position. Would anybody care to second that? And then we could do a vote.
Can I second it as the chair?
Most certainly.
I would definitely like to second that. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd say the ayes have it, it carries. Commissioner Brown will be our new chairperson. Is that effective immediately or at the next meeting?
I would do the next meeting.
Perfect. Like I said, I'm happy to carry on as vice chair. If someone else is happy to do that, I would be more than willing to allow that to take place as well. You guys are really chatty tonight.
Would anybody like to nominate Mr. Icewig for the vice chair position?
Mr.
Sure, I'll nominate him.
Do we have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Right?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? It appears that I will be the vice chair again for this next calendar year.
Leroy. Well, thank you, everyone. I apologize. I don't recall if we ever got a draft out to you on the countywide planning policies, because I was waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it. And then I went on vacation, so doesn't look like anybody knows what I'm talking about.
I don't believe I saw one.
So I believe we finally have a draft available. I know they put it out for public comment, so we'll get that to you just to look over the plan. The cities and the county met this afternoon. And the plan moving forward is the public comment period closed today, but we're still looking it over, making little tweaks here and there in terms of like grammatical things like that. But not much content-based changes. But I'll get that draft to you shortly. But the plan is for that to go before the county commissioners in September, late September. And at that point, if they accept it, they will then basically send it back to the cities or send it to the cities for adoption. So we'll bring it back to the planning commission and ask the planning commission for a recommendation to the city council to adopt it. And so that'll probably happen in October. So.
Okay. Any other business for the good of the order this evening?
Just quick update on. Well, I briefly mentioned that we are hiring a senior planner, or we have a job announcement out. We haven't done any interviews yet. So that's exciting. It was partially funded the first year, which is highly unusual, from the Department of Commerce. It was a streamlining residential review permit applications grant. And so once that position gets filled, we'll start making we already have a pretty streamlined residential review, for single family homes, but it's going to be really helpful for me to have a second person in the office to help move projects forward. And so I'm excited about that. And then we're working with JUB on ramping up on comprehensive plan stuff for 2025 and 2026. So they will be our consulting firm to help us through the comp plan process. The first thing that we'll be working on after we get the countywide planning policies adopted is finalizing what the methodologies are for our urban growth expansion, to determine how much land we need, and then figuring out where that's going to go. So next year is going to be a busy year. We most likely will meet every month with our consultants and be working on this stuff. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to conclude the meeting this evening?
I had a question real quick. How's the project at Lions Park doing?
Yeah, it's going well. A lot of stuff that's going on, underneath. Big things early on, we're getting those stormwater filtration vaults placed and the storm line installed from the pond. If you recall, all of the stormwater from 12th Street and the neighborhood just to the south, up there above the bluff, all of that stormwater from the streets collects and dumps directly into the pond. And so that is being captured and will go into these stormwater treatment vaults underneath the parking lot, and then dump into Garrison Creek. So that's been a big part of the project. And then other, groundwork, utility work has been going on. A lot of excavation. The pond has been drained. There's a work window for in-water stream work, which started July 15th and goes to the end of September. So we couldn't start any of that work until mid-July. And so that work's underway, which is rechannelizing Garrison Creek and separating it from the pond, draining that pond out and taking out the 10 or 11 feet of silt, and then rebuilding that back up to what the new elevation will be. I missed the last project update meeting last Monday, so I'm about a week and a half behind on where things are at. But things are moving along. Building permits are about ready to be issued on the structures, the 2 new restrooms. There's a storage utility building and picnic shelter, and the splash pad. So things are moving along. It doesn't look like it. This just looks like a big war zone, but there are things happening. Yeah.
Good.
The last 5%. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Now, do we have anyone that would like to have a motion to conclude?
I move that we adjourn.
All right, and that was Commissioner who?
Ken,
Ken? Do we have a second?
Second, Wagoner.
Schwagner seconds. Wonderful. If there's no objection, the meeting is now concluded at 7:52 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. It's good to see you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Have a good night.
night.
thank you.